Number 5, from Private Freedom. What do you think of the story of the two Japanese men who were stopped at the Italian-Swiss border with 134 billion in U.S. treasuries? I think it's very amusing. I don't think that these are legitimate treasury obligations. I think they're forgeries, especially since I think they're 40 years old. I'm not even sure if we had that much debt 40 years ago, or the denominations. Some people think it's the Japanese endeavoring to smuggle bonds out of the country. I doubt it. I don't think the Japanese government would entrust two people with 134 billion in bonds in a suitcase. I wouldn't. So I think it makes interesting reading, but I don't think there's any kind of conspiracy here. I do think, though, that ultimately the Japanese do want to get rid of their U.S. treasuries, despite the fact that their finance minister just came out and said that he had unshakable confidence in the dollar and confidence in our strong dollar policy. We know that's all nonsense. There is no strong dollar policy, so how can he have confidence in something that doesn't exist? And how can anybody have unshakable confidence in anything? Especially considering all the things that we're doing that would shake anybody's confidence, especially, the second largest holder of our debt. So, don't look at what the Japanese say, look at what they do. And I'm sure behind the scenes, they're trying to find a way out of this mess. And I think the message is clear. Anybody that has dollars, they need to get rid of their dollars before the Japanese get rid of theirs, or the Chinese, or any other major holder for that matter. Oh, there's more to this question. Do you think Japan is trying to secretly unload its bonds without causing a collapse in their prices? Maybe they are, but they're not doing it through this suitcase and these two individuals. The day after the news broke, the Japanese government came out and oddly said, "We have complete trust in the fact that the U.S. views its strong dollar policy is fundamental, so our trust in U.S. Treasury is absolutely unshakable." Yes, I just mentioned that, and of course this is sheer nonsense. I think that the Japanese were pressured to say this by the U.S. government. Similarly, I think a couple days after that, we had similar statements from the finance minister in Russia. This is all a PR effort on the part of foreign central banks to verbally intervene and talk up a failing currency. If they had confidence in the dollar, they wouldn't have to say so. The dollar's confidence would speak for itself. They're not coming out and saying they have confidence in the euro. Why? Because they don't have to. Anyway, question number 6 from Salvage. Dear Peter, I have a question.
Let's skip 6.
Oh, that's 6.
Super long. So
6 is super long.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Salvage. We're running out of time. Let's go on to number 7. Dead. Dear Mr. Schiff, which are the top 5 books and or videos, lectures, leaflets, and any other form of information you would recommend to understand correctly economics? I don't care if they are long or short. Thank you. Well, certainly my books are good. Crash Proof, How to Profit from the Coming Economic Collapse, and the Little Book of Bull Moves and Bear Markets. But also books that I found that were very good at teaching you economics that I read myself. One is Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Easy Lesson. I think that's a very understandable and easy to read book for the basics. In fact, I have a reading list on my website at europac.net. If you look at the recommended reading list and look at oldies but goodies, there's a lot of books there that I recommend. I particularly like my father's books as well because they influenced me. One is called, if you can get it on Amazon, The Biggest Con, How the Government is Fleecing You. Excellent book written in the 1970s. And my father wrote 2 cartoon books on economics, which are very hard to get right now and very expensive on some of these used sites. One is called How an Economy Grows and Why It Doesn't, and one is called The Kingdom of Malts. You don't have to buy them now. I am in the process of revising and updating both of these books, and they will be coming out together as one book early next year, so look for that. But again, go to my website, and the books that I recommend are there on economics. Number 8, from Blazin Eurasian. Do you use any economic methods or models in your research? No, I don't. Number 9, the anti-tribot. How did you find out about Reddit? Well, I actually found out about Reddit because an individual who had put up a site for me, a fan site for me on Facebook, and recently turned over that site to me to begin administering, did something similar on Reddit, and then brought it to my attention. and that's how I found out about it. So now I think I do have some kind of presence on Reddit, although I haven't started doing anything with it. I know I'm trying to do something with social media. It's on my list of things to do. I just haven't had a chance to actively do it. I'm very busy with a number of things that I'm working on at the moment. Number 10, did. You've many times said that government intervention is bad for the market. What is your position on regulation, for example, anti-monopoly regulation? How would markets rule out competition problems by themselves? Well, I don't believe that monopolies would exist in a free market. And to the extent that anybody was able to monopolize an industry, it would be because they were able to deliver a product so competitively that nobody else can compete with them, in which case there's nothing wrong with that type of a monopoly. The problem with monopoly is the monopolists can seek monopoly profits, that they can price in such a way that they get a monopoly rate of return. I don't want to go into all the integral details of the economics of it, but the theory is that that does not happen in the real world. And most of the litigation in the United States, and you go back to the big cases with Standard Oil and Alcoa Aluminum, these big companies that were broken up, the impetus to break them up never came from their customers. It never came from their consumers. It always came from their competitors. And it was the competitors who said that they could not compete, that they could not deliver products as efficiently. They could not compete on price or quality. Therefore, they wanted their more efficient, larger competitor broken up. And so it seems that American antitrust law is for the benefit of inefficient competitors and to the detriment of consumers in the free market. Now, I think there are some cases where you can potentially have a natural monopoly in a certain area, but generally that has to do with some kind of license that has been given by the government where competitors cannot get a license. So to the extent where the government actually licenses a monopoly, then that government needs to regulate the use of that license. But in situations where there is no license, then if there is a monopoly, it's not because the monopoly was granted to them by the government. And when a government grants a monopoly, what the government does is make it illegal for anybody else to compete. For example, the post office. The post office is a monopoly in that it is illegal for anybody else to compete in first-class mail delivery. They made an exception for things like FedEx or UPS, but I've seen the government put out of business individuals, kids who try to deliver mail on a bicycle, and they get shut down for illegally competing with the post office. But in general, the free market is the best defense against monopoly pricing. And again, that's the only time a monopoly is bad, if they're not innovative and if they monopoly price. But if you have an innovative monopoly that is so good, that delivers products that are so competitive that nobody else can compete, what's wrong with that? Anyway, I guess that's it for the questions. Thanks everybody for asking them.
Do you have any questions you want to ask the economics community on Reddit? Any things you want to hear their thoughts on? Or
I don't know. I'm not really sure what the economic community is on Reddit, or how many economists are posting there. The one thing about economics is I think that the vast majority of people who study economics or profess to be economists or have the title economist, generally they know absolutely nothing about real economics. What they know is Keynesianism, which is the same thing as a doctor claiming that he's a medical doctor because he's studied witch doctoring, or it's like somebody claiming they're an astronomer because they've studied astrology. Keynesianism has nothing to do with economics. It's all a fantasy. None of it works. It's all nonsense. And unfortunately, so many people have bought into this con. And the belief in Keynesianism is that the root cause of a lot of problems, not only in the United States, but all around the world.